Call the meeting to order. Would join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Klein.
Here.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Here. Alderman Fahy.
Here.
Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Bennett. Alderman Eidman.
Here.
Alderman Rainey. Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Steiger. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This time we will move to approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No presentations, personal appearances tonight, so we will skip down to the city administrator's report.
We have an updated report at your seat. Starting with item 1, we're looking at some extra costs on the North 4th Street repaving project. This is the one between Washington and LeCompte. We got down to looking at the drain box that all of the stormwater goes into at LeCompte and up on the top of Washington that comes down low on the street. Found that the pipe on the west side is clogged and the pipe on the west side is rusted out. So at this point, what we're looking at getting board approval to do is to change that setup from the way it is now, move it to a street inlet, bring the pipe across to the new street inlet that is part of the project, and then extend that back to the box. So we will eliminate the one pipe, the corrugated metal pipe that's in there now. We're just going to leave it. We'll cap the ends, but we'll just leave it because we don't want to mess with it because there's gas lines and fiber optic and everything else. So we can just open up the street once, put in what we need, connect it, and then we're ready to go. Cost to do that is about $20,193. But we're already at a price for the project of $132,295, so that's going to raise it up to $151,552, which means just extra out of the reserves.
I take it that was all approved by our engineer of how to do it.
Yeah, well, actually, we're kind of engineering it and then getting approval. We're going to go back to the, I will say this, last time we did something like this, we did it without the engineer redrafting it. We got his verbal approval. That's what we're working on here is we have Cochran on site to do the construction engineering. And at this point, he's okay with that. So we're not going to worry about just, trying to redraft it.
So it's not going to affect any of the homeowners?
It shouldn't.
Okay.
It should be better for the homeowners. And really, it's on the backside of those homes. So it doesn't face them. It'll be better for the traffic because we'll be able to level that street out a little bit better.
Right.
So, but the problem also is that we have to remove concrete that we already poured to make it work. So, I'm looking for approval on the change order, a motion and a second and approval, voice approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Oh, no, it's fine. I got mine. Moving down some of the extra items, I was going to send out engineering firm to draft the plans for the expand Crestlawn Cemetery. However, I've been asked by one of the board members to hold that for a work session. So we'll discuss that in November. Item 9, this is a 5 Thursday month, so we will have 3 Thursdays before we get to the next meeting. So keep that in mind. And the auditors are going to begin their yearly review starting Monday, November 4th, and they'll be here the whole week. They will be working out of the conference room. So we won't have to worry about setting them up in here and then tearing everything down when it's election day. So yeah, this kind of works nice. Any questions about anything else I've got on the report? Oh, I do have one more thing. I'm sorry. I do want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. They came out for their leadership volunteer day at Pere Marquette Park. All of the tables up at the big pavilion were painted. And then they did some leaf raking. There's going to be tons more leaves that come down, but they cleaned it up kind of for the weekend. So I think that was a great activity they do every year. And so we have them do Pierre Marquette Park this year, and they did a great job. So just want to thank them.
Happy, I did have a question on number, kind of related to number 7 and stuff, is we had an inquiry back some time ago about a private, situation,
Mausoleum.
pardon me?
Mausoleum.
Yes. Have we,
So I don't want to move forward with what they're requesting until we have an idea what we're going to do with the rest of this, or with the rest of or a portion of this property.
but that was in the Crestlawn portion, right? Okay.
Sure was. Yep. And I've been contacting the individual who was interested in it, or he contacts me.
But that's the only interest we ever had in that, or,
For that type of setup,
right?
yeah. So what we've been looking at is that we're running out of plots. So we're looking at trying to expand. That's the main reason for doing the
Right.
expansion.
I'm just wondering if that's something to possibly have a little bit of an area, maybe in the future, plan or something like that, but,
There's not much room left. It is a small piece, and you'll get to see what we're talking about next month.
right. But you know, if you noticed up there, I mean, that type of service has definitely increased
Yeah.
from the conventional area, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Happy. This time we'll move to some staff reports. First up tonight, we have Lieutenant Pollock.
Evening, everybody. You guys have a copy of our monthly report in front of you. You guys have any questions about any of that?
So what is that training?
What's that? Training?
LEEDA-FBI.
Oh, the LEADA. It's a training. It's training for leadership provided in conjunction with the FBI. You just go in and you learn, executive leadership models. There's 3 parts to it. I've been through one already. This will be my second part, and then in January I'll do the third one and complete the program.
Okay.
Any questions? All right. Thank you. And next up, we have Corey Litteris with Alliance Water.
Good evening. Street sweeper is out and running now. Last month you guys put some money into it. All the parts been replaced. It is 100% better than what it was. It was pretty rough shape. Had a couple water leaks the past few weeks. Main Street and over on Park. Got them tight or fixed up. I don't know if we'll get asphalted and if they're making hot mix or not, but if so, if hot mix is done, we will put a cold patch in them and just to close them up for the winter. So, and then Craftco training is next week on a crack fill machine. So then we'll be out sealing up some of the new streets that need it and try to preserve some of the older ones. Any questions?
Had any opportunity to use the new vac truck?
Yes, several. Yes, it worked out well. Park the other day, Park and Elm, we had a leak right there, and we've had it out multiple times, and it's definitely beneficial.
Any other questions, Corey? All right. Thank you,
Thanks.
Corey. At this time, we will open up the floor to public comment. Okay. No public comment, then we'll move down to tonight's consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll take us through some old business here. We have a second reading of bill number 4642. This is an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to sign a one-year order form with Placer Labs Incorporated for visitor analytic data.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 4642 now becomes ordinance 4563.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have a second reading of bill number 4643. This is an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Stephen W. Dotson for grant writing assistance for the tourism and community development departments.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. 5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 4643 now becomes ordinance 4564.
Thank you. Next up, another second reading for bill number 4644. This is an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Sugaroo LLC, OBO New West Records for a music synchronization license for an online tourism video for tourism advertising.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 4644 now becomes ordinance 4565.
Thank you. Next up, a second reading of bill number 4645. This is an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, creating a no parking restriction on the west side of Fifth Street between Market Street and Merchant Street.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 4645 now becomes ordinance 4566.
Thank you. And lastly, we'll have a second reading of bill number 4646. This is an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a 5-year contract with Omnigos Software LLC of Plano, Texas for web-based public safety software services.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 4646 now becomes ordinance 4567.
Thank you. This time we'll move into some new business. We need to set some dates for our November and December Board of Aldermen meetings.
So usually what we've done in the past is the first meetings are, we do meet. We got November 14th and December, I guess, what. But the second meetings, obviously, the second meetings in November is always going to land on Thanksgiving. So we've kind of set that as an emergency only meeting that we'll do that Monday before. And then in December, almost the same thing if you want to try to schedule something. But usually it's just those first meetings that will meet in November and December. Looking for approval on those. And those dates, yeah, I should put dates on there. I know it's November 14th, but I can't remember December's 10th.
12th and, yeah, so the 12th would be the first December meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, so 26th, I don't think anybody wants
You need
to.
a motion on that or just
Yeah,
motion to approve?
Second?
And the motion is for,
so we'll meet on,
just to clarify,
yeah, we'll meet on the 14th, November 14th and December 12th, and then have, if we needed a meeting before Thanksgiving, which would be the
21st.
21st.
Seemed to have worked in the past for several years, so.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. We should have some information too within your packet on the next agenda item. This is regarding the take-home car policy for the police department. So the requested change is, my understanding is to increase the mileage from, is that still from City Hall or is that to go from the?
It's from the City Hall / police.
They're asking for it to start at the.
Start at the city limits.
Which I thought it was that way already, but so we're just increasing it from 33 to 35 is all we're doing, an extra 2 miles.
And I think from 30 to 35.
Yeah, you're going 5 miles plus the distance from.
Oh, okay, the 33, okay, I see what that is.
Yep.
Do you need a motion on that or?
Yep.
Motion to approve? Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to extend the current distance from 30 miles to 35 miles. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That's an aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay.
Happy, I do have one question about that. If we don't ask them to report to the police department, how do we know they're here? I mean, they have their own way they check in.
It's been our policy that when you get into the city limits, you radio on. So none of the guys that come from outside should be calling on service outside of the jurisdiction. For liability purposes and other reasons, we want to make sure they're being true to what they're getting paid for. So, when most of the guys hit the city limits, that's what they do.
Right.
They'll sign on.
Works.
Next, we will move to Resolution 2025-04. This is a resolution appointing Roseanne, is that Ani? Ani? Roseanne Ani to the St. Genevieve Tourism Tax Commission.
Motion to approve?
Second.
What's your background for that position? He works at French Colonial America. He was on our TAC. So she has to be involved in the tourism industry by state statute. So being with FCA, and she fulfills that requirement.
Okay, so I believe we do have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then that will take us to a first reading of bill number 4647. This is an ordinance approving an assignment of redevelopment agreement and TIF note and authorizing certain actions related thereto.
Okay, I've got a couple questions about that. So this is basically an extension of the original agreement.
This is a change to the original agreement allowing this transfer. In the original agreement, it held tight to whoever you approved originally. But there was a section there that if the board approves the transfer, then it can take place.
But we're not extending it, we're just limiting to the original amount of money in the original time.
It will still go to 2036 is the end date.
You're just changing one of the parties that's involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Motion to approve?
Second, whatever.
Are there any city funds involved in this?
No.
Whose money is it?
It's either sales tax money or it's property tax money that's collected. And then that's distributed to them in the TIF district.
So it is our St. Genevieve tax money?
Yeah.
Correct. I do believe there was a motion and a second on the floor for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then at this time, we do have a first reading, optional second reading, if you so choose, for Bill number 4648. This is an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve for the fiscal year 2024 budget relating to various revenue and expenditure increases.
So we found some extra money that was not accounted for when we did the original budget amendment before we adopted the fiscal year 2025 budget. So we're just moving the money where it is in Fund 51 to Fund 50. So we're trying to get this cleaned up before we have the auditors come in.
Basically, it amounts to almost $42,000.
Nice when you find money.
Motion to approve?
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second for a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be a second reading of Bill number 4648. This is an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve for the fiscal year 2024 budget relating to various revenue and expenditure increases.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Dobbs.
Yes.
Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yep.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 4648 now becomes ordinance 4568.
Thank you. Any other business at this time? Discuss? No? Okay, with that, we'll take us to our last agenda item. This is regarding the Progress Parkway RFQ. You should have some information that was sent out previously, and
We're going to hand some
we're going to hand some out.
Against people. 1, 2. It's different what we had before. I must have known. Yeah. Who's it? Yeah, thank you.
So I'm really feeling pressure it down. Give you one that has the changes from all the stuff. What do you want me to copy?
You want this to go where?
We should have somebody that needs one. No, everybody got one. Oh, you probably need one.
What do you need? You take that. It's the same as it.
This one's got some questions.
Is this for me?
That is yours.
Okay, thank you.
So everybody had a chance to review that RFQ ahead of tonight. So I think at this time, it's more or less if there's questions, concerns, thoughts. Alderman Steiger was unable to be here, but he did send, I guess it was just to you and myself, I
Yeah.
think.
And which is the proper thing to do, then we distribute. What I didn't want to do is then give everybody a copy of that. We can ask those questions. You may have other questions yourself about the RFQ and what the costs are, the prices, what we've included that we are looking at. As an example, on page 2, item 2, second paragraph, we talk about putting water, sewer, and streets in. His question was, where do we mention electric, natural gas, and internet? So I know natural gas and internet are done by the companies themselves. It usually is not, it isn't the developer that puts those in. Electric is a little different in that you put the electric in and then you get refunded as the houses or as the lots sell. But we didn't include that information in there. We can throw that in there. Our focus was on street, sewer, and water.
I mean, but it is our intent to put in the electric. So I guess that probably, do you think that needs to be stated in
It's good
there?
in there, yeah.
Regarding prices of the homes, I thought when we first heard the presentation a year ago, the home prices were starting like at 150, 180, and 190. Now we got 250.
The information we got from the developer that we were discussing with, I believe their starting price was somewhere around 189 of their lower model, like the smallest of the models, or floor plans. So that was a
That's
base
always
price.
been the content.
It was, yeah, that was their, yeah. And then it kind of stair-stepped up from there. And then there are add-ons, of course, that the buyer of the property could then choose that could then increase that final price, but base price was starting in a tiered fashion, like you mentioned.
So, but those choices would not be governed by this agreement, the add-ons.
Well, and I think that's a topic for discussion tonight because, you know, the sale price on some of those, of course, is could be less, but it could also be more depending on what the buyer would choose as to certain finishings. I believe the developer mentioned that, you know, it varied between the tiers, but like in the lower tier, there was something of on average 20 to 30,000 in upgrades, and then like 40 to 50, I believe, in the next tier, and then maybe some more in the upper tier was more like 50 to 75. So there's, and I had mentioned this to Happy as well. I don't know if we want to get specific about dollar amounts. We might want to.
Mark had a good idea that we talked about today. It's putting a median price in there instead of, what I was trying to do is capture whatever the prices we were looking at, because we do want there to be what we were looking at, we know the price for home construction has gone up, but we want that also to be reflected in that price with the construction that we're doing, with the infrastructure that we're putting in there. So we could talk about a median price home, and then you're looking at, the ranges that are above and below that, trying to keep it at a certain ratio.
So that was just a suggestion, maybe a practical suggestion, not really legal advice. But I think it's important for you all to remember that this is a request for qualifications and not necessarily a request for a specific proposal. Once you select whoever you would want to select, assuming you have multiple choices, then you'd really be entering in negotiations with that firm or that developer. So this is already, the original draft was very specific with the idea of, let's talk apples and apples between these developers. And so I just would caution you not to get too caught up in too many of the details, but you do want to inform whoever's going to respond to this, the idea that the city has in general terms, that we will provide certain infrastructure for the property that the city owns, we being the city, and then we expect the price to be either a median price or, a maximum price, or however you want to describe it, which is similar to the language. I think Happy used a similar language to the RFQ or RFP, maybe even from the city of Washington, that you have a specific purpose of developing this property for housing in a certain range of price. It's a long-winded way to say, you know, you can word this however you want, but know that neither side's going to be bound by this when they submit the proposals. But if a developer was thinking, we're going to put in, nothing but $400,000 houses in there, they're not going to submit a response to this because they can see that there's some number that we want lower for at least a certain amount of them, right?
That'd be one of the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I'm just thinking, if the concept of, if we didn't put anything into this in terms of infrastructure and all, they would come in and be able to set the price based on all it costs them to put it up and what they think the market gives. We've subsidized $5 million for 150 homes, which comes out to about $30,000 a home. So we would expect a home that they build on that site would be $30,000 less than what if they built. And how are we sure that they're not saying thanks for that money and we're going to try and charge the maximum? That we
I think
can?
that's the safeguard that, I mean, like Mark said, I think the final agreement will probably spell that out more specifically, but I think the idea is that
We keep it broad.
we're telling the whatever developer or any developers that might be interested that the idea is affordability is also top of mind when it comes to this request, that the city is making a sizable injection and contribution to the infrastructure in an attempt to drive down some prices so that affordability, is increased.
So we would have to have some expertise to know that this house somewhere else would cost 180,000, but we're going to list it for 150,000 then.
There's going to have to be, the devil's going to be, so there's going to have to be, assuming that's what the city's priority is at that time, I'll have to have some language in the agreement with the developer to be able to come to an agreement and to analyze and verify that the buyer is getting that subsidy as opposed to the developer, or possibly sharing, some of that, but that somehow the majority or a substantial portion of that is gonna help with the sale price to encourage people moving here, because the whole point of this entire process, as I understand it, is to get more people, more housing for more people here, and that would, of course, facilitate that public goal of the city, as well as the traffic benefits of extending the street, et cetera, et cetera.
So how do we, most of the subdivisions I've been around, there's a square footage requirement. It's not really a dollar amount, there's a square footage. And then two, how do we get to the point of our current building code requirements and stuff of setbacks and?
Well, that portion is going to be addressed in the potential rezoning into a PUD, because that would allow that portion, this area, to
Be different.
be different than the
Right.
typical setback requirements.
So most likely you'll have at some point a contract with contingencies for zoning approval, and just like you would with any commercial development, when there's a zoning change needed. So we're talking about doing a PUD so you could address a number of different setback requirements, that sort of thing. So that would be part of that agreement at the back end of it right now. Right now, we're looking at trying to give a general outline of what we're looking for to see if we can get developers interested. And the details will follow their proposal and their response. But all of that would be dealt with pretty much at the very end for approval of the zoning and the actual development plan.
So the square footage would fall under that.
Well, it can. It depends on your priorities. You're gonna have a lot size and you're gonna have setback requirements. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, the square footage. Are you talking about the lot size? Are you talking about
No, the square footage of the
of the
building
building?
is very common.
Yes, it'll depend on what the plan and the proposal will be at that point.
and that could all be worked out as we progress through selecting a developer on a project. The idea here, hopefully, is that we would get a few varying presentations or proposals that might have one proposal may have a mix of smaller footprint homes, floor plan homes,
Right.
similar to what we saw
Right.
almost a year ago. But, I mean, I think the idea being, I think we just like to see what the proposals are first, and then, selecting from there, we could maybe determine allocations of certain size homes.
Right.
And at that time, we could put minimum requirements or whatever, but I think the idea behind this proposal is to see what the options we may come across or what other developers may see from the property, their vision as to what they think might work best. And obviously we can inform some decision-making on that too, once we get to that point. But I think the idea is that and you can see some of the verbiage in this too, that explore some ideas here and there, explore the idea of potentially, I mean, there's some, I believe that we referenced some senior housing, with, some low maintenance, some, that lawns would be taken care of, things of that nature. So it's just, I mean, I think we want them to try to explore all the ideas that they might come up with so that we could review them and see what's the best fit. I mean, that's the whole goal of this, is for us to find the best fit.
Because that's some of the concerns that have been expressed to me is having a development that's diverse. In other words, where we can have lower, maybe smaller homes, and then we still have an area to have the bigger, more, for professional people that we've all heard, has been a major concern. We don't have a place to get those people here in town and stuff. And, as this thing has kind of progressed, one of the early, things that we had showed 100 lots, then we were up to 160 plus lots. And 160 plus lots, I mean, those are very small lots.
Yeah, and I think that proposal was even augmented down to 152, and then,
Yeah, that's not much.
but it's not, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Well, and I think like Mark said, I mean, I think that conversations happens maybe a little further down the line. I think
Right.
we're just trying to determine.
Well, and I like the fact that we're quoting a percentage here, not saying we're gonna have X number of lots, because then they can take this 49 acres and stuff and lay it out however they feel.
Blank canvas.
Right.
Agreed. And you could, so you guys don't have Joe's version. He did ask questions on that.
Just gonna work my way down.
Yeah, yeah,
So
go ahead.
item B was favor a dense neighborhood utilizing creativity to achieve placemaking. Let's just try to give it a little identity. Besides, putting in more homes, is to make it, feel like a neighborhood. And we also, in that, we talked about plan unit development to increase the lot sizes, to increase the amount of homes, because you can reduce the side setbacks, front setbacks, and that. And we also talk in C about encouraging mixture of housing units, various sizes, exterior designs, layouts, bedroom configurations. Most builders have their configurations they've used over and over and over again, but they can change the exterior a little bit. So there can be a variety. One thing that Joe asked for was off-street parking, and we have that in our code already for residential, that you have to have so many off-street parking spaces. So I don't think there's an issue that we have with that. And again, part of a planned unit development, if you wanted something more, that's when you could ask for it. I threw this in there because this was part of what Washington had. I've gotten some blowback on this. Utilization of energy efficiency programs, materials, equipment, and fixtures with the housing units is encouraged. Why? Just trying to make them, it's one of the things that people are pushing now. We can scratch that if you don't think that's important to put in there.
Well, that would add to the cost, and that's what we're trying to keep down, is the cost. So if you're gonna mandate having those things in there, that's gonna increase the cost of the house.
Right. So there are certain requirements in the code as it is. So what you're asking in this is to you elevate above what minimum code requirements are. So if you want me to pull that, I'll pull that out.
Sounds like Alderman Steiger would like for you to pull it out.
It's out of there.
Well, I mean, that would be considered an upgrade that the particular homeowner can upgrade to, but I don't think we should be in the business of telling them that they have to do it their house.
Fair enough. E, configuration of the lot's development design is negotiable within the parameters of the property. And again, because of elevations and the connector roads, we want those roads in there, Bosler and Parkwood, to, come together and connect with Progress Parkway. That's on our master plan. Encourage walkability in the development to take advantage of Progress Parkway Trail. So our thought is that we're going to require that the builders put in the sidewalks. We're not going to do that as part of our street project. That's going to be as you build each home. I think that's what they did at Valley Springs, yeah. So it'd be the same thing here, that you would put it in.
Well, the homeowner is responsible for the sidewalk in their sidewalks in Valley Springs. I know that the proposal we received initially that was reviewed included sidewalks. That was part of the developer's plan, not to be passed on, or wasn't the homeowner's responsibility. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think what you're getting at in the verbiage is trying to get them to think of sidewalks, right? I mean, yeah. So I
You gotta
think,
have connections.
yeah, but you can, I mean, once again, it's broad. So we're just looking to get ideas, and then, from there, we can work out details.
Eventually, we would like to, or we would need to, as a city, look at connecting sidewalks on Parkwood to get it to Highway 61, because there's nothing along Parkwood. Bosler, same thing. There's a short amount of sidewalks there, so. But we want them to think about that. But he's also got street widths and open space and common areas, which there'll be common areas because there'll be places that you can't develop, that you can't put a lot on. So that'll be part of the plat that they bring to the board to look at, probably a sketch plan to begin with. Explore using one cul-de-sac as a senior housing development with attached homes, maintained yards, and affordable prices. Again, this is a recommendation. The question is, why on the cul-de-sac? Because it was actually brought up by a builder saying, hey, this is something we could do separate of everything else that's going in. And then it could be kind of its own group. It could be have its own homeowners association. They can do the maintenance of the houses, maintenance of the yards. It's a lot of these places are attached homes, and that's how they're set up. But they've got their own association that maintains everything, so the homeowners don't have to worry about it. So we're just looking at that as a possibility. There is a need for more senior housing. So something geared toward that, I think, would be beneficial.
Well, and that had always been part of the conversations that was had, I know, with the IDC when they were discussing potential, trying to find suitors, but also trying to find, maybe the best desirable plan for the property. So I know that they had kicked around that thought. I don't know that we've seen any proposals necessarily that have included that, but I think it's worth considering. And it's probably buried in some of the details of A, with the price, where your price points come in somewhat, but any kind of variety, I think, and if they're exploring that option, there's no harm in that. So, I don't think there's any reason why we would deter them from trying that.
So item H, the city will have a defined cost associated with infrastructure improvements, or the city will hire subcontractors to have the actual improvement installed according to the approved final construction plan. What I intended that to be is that that's a work in progress between us and the developer, and that's what we would be working towards. Joe's comment was, city is going to be general contractor on utility infrastructure project as a standalone. As a question, it's like we had originally thought about doing that, but now let's incorporate it as part of this RFQ, that can be negotiated or worked out to the benefit of both. But I want them to know that we're putting funds into this,
Right.
and we want that to help offset costs of the homes.
Happy, one thing just came to mind, stuff on G. We're talking about one cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sacs are normally a more, and I don't know how the design would work out, are more coveted areas. I just wonder if that would be Do we actually want to mention a cul-de-sac or just an area?
We can do that because we're also looking at there was a road connection between Bosler and Parkwood on the north end. That's, a couple of the drafts showed that, and you could put it on that area.
Right.
So
So,
we-
you know, that's always kind of a higher priced area and stuff, seems like. But the other thing that comes to mind and stuff is when we originally were working with the church, we were supposed to provide access and stuff to their athletic fields through this subdivision.
That actually is one of the comments.
Yeah.
So what we have done is we've provided an easement. So it'll be access off of Parkwood to get back to the ball field, the baseball field.
Oh, not through the subdivision.
I mean, it's through the subdivision, so you're coming in Parkwood and then off Parkwood, you can get to the back of the baseball field.
Any development's gonna have to deal with that recorded easement.
Yeah.
Right. You're not gonna be able to block it off the building or something.
So what we're not doing is paving it. We're not volunteering to put that in.
And it also wouldn't be like a dedicated permanent thoroughfare. It would be something that could be accessed if needed.
I know we were talking about gating it or something. at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah, and I think that's probably gonna end up being
Right.
something that happens once this goes in. There will be some sort of gate there.
Right. So, but the extension is there, the access will be there. They can put rock on it and maintain it however they want, put a gate up. Because we don't want people going in and out that way. That would be, that'd be problematic.
And while I mean, I think Joe's other comment kind of coincides with that. I mean, do we need to address that Bosler does need to connect all the way through? Or is that spelled out anywhere else if they're,
What I can do, it's, the way it's been shown is either one or the other. But they connect into each other
Sure.
at some point. So you end up with that full connection to,
one or the other needs to make its way to Progress
Right.
Parkway? So we're not necessarily designating one or the other at this time. We're just more or less saying one's got to make it out there.
because I don't think you want the two roads coming out.
No.
I think then it does become problematic for a developer.
Yeah, because that property kind of narrows right as it gets towards, yeah.
Yeah, so we
Talking
will,
about Parkwood and Boston.
Yeah, yeah. I know that was talked about it for some time, of trying to get both of those roads out there, but I mean, that's unnecessary.
I think the way the property lays out, because of the amount of engineers that have looked at this and drawn it, Bosler is the natural connection, and that's what you're gonna see. It just lays out best. And then, let's see, we moved down, staying in that section, we jump over the city is open to rezoning, that's a planned unit development. And the city will request a commitment from the approved development team to utilize local subcontractors, this was brought up at our last meeting, when practical for the infrastructure development and home construction. Alderman Steiger's comment was, we need to institute a local preference program. They are legal and allowed to 5% more or a tiebreaker clause, et cetera. We need to look at these. I think that's more if we're doing for our purchasing policy. I'm not sure if it applies here.
Yeah, I don't know if he's referencing what we're doing or what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you're trying to address is the development team, not so much what we're committed doing from an infrastructure standpoint, right?
Right. I
And
just
even then, that's in the details, right? I mean,
Right.
Right,
You know.
so we're putting on notice, it's a strong preference to work with local contractors, and then we'd have to work out the details at that time, but, you know, you don't want to say they have to necessarily, because maybe if all of them don't want to have that requirement, you won't get any proposals, you know, and so the wording you had originally, I thought was fine, because it states the specific preference for local contractors to be hired, and I think a developer would expect that from a municipality, you know, on some level.
And what we're like asking them to do is explore that possibility. Maybe they know some contractors, or they can reach out and start making contacts and see if that's some, you know, those are available, those folks.
Right.
And then the rest of it is just the requirements and the instructions.
Happy, this immediately falls under our use tax
When you say use tax,
The city, don't we have a use tax in the city limits?
yes.
Yeah, so this would fall under that.
For purchasing.
Yeah,
So that would be if you're, I don't know how that works with where they purchase from. Because it would be delivered if it's lumber or whatever. So I don't know if the use tax, our use tax would apply to that because it would be local businesses that would have to pay that.
most use taxes are where it's delivered, not the point of origin. So,
I don't know.
so we don't know if our use tax,
Well, it's going to depend on the circumstances of how the materials are brought here. That's a really Department of Revenue question, because if they have materials brought to their location that's outside the city, and they bring some here and have some for other projects, I would think that the location where it was originally delivered might be asserting the sales tax, that location, or a use tax at that location. I mean, that's an impossible question to answer today.
Yeah.
Because it all depends on how it ends up happening.
Any questions?
With revisions discussed, what's the,
Making the changes, sending it out.
okay,
Yeah, I don't think it requires a vote of the board to approve it. Administrative function, it's an important administrative function, and so the idea was to get input from everybody before it actually gets published. So everybody's on kind of the same page, it doesn't have any big issues with it.
But everybody's had some questions about it, so let's get it nailed down and sent out.
How long do you think it would take a developer to put together a proposal?
I think I've got it set for 30 days.
They have to be pretty geared up for it, you know, without lighting and mapping. They have a cookie cutter kind of thing that is,
I mean, I can make it longer.
well, I know the market.
Most RFPs we send out, we give 30 days notice. We don't meet, so this will happen right before Thanksgiving, so we don't meet until December. So I can push it off till first week of December, say, and then have them all together and then bring them to the board.
Better idea.
give it a little bit more time.
even though it's a pretty vague
Anyway,
situation.
Do they have to submit do they just have to show interest that we want to present something, or do they have to send you a plan pretty well hashed out in 30 days?
We have a cover letter, project approach, a proposed design, and examples of previous work. That's what we want to see. And then what we would probably do is look at it, narrow it down to those who would want to have actual proposals, come in and talk to us. And then you choose somebody from that.
The developer that was down here a year ago, are they still interested in under the line on this thing?
They will be given this and encouraged to submit.
But have they had ongoing discussions with us, or do they make that one presentation and we didn't hear much?
We've been I have been keeping them abreast of what's going on with our funding, because it really, how we left it with them was we needed to find funding for the project. So they're aware that
And what we liked about them, they're big, right? And were they the one at the Washington that we've kind of used as our model? And the feedback that we're getting from Washington is that things go through as expected with them.
I contacted Washington, but they never called me back.
It's a lot smaller.
Yeah,
It's a lot smaller project.
It's 26 homes.
But we were looking for scale, right? So somebody that could build a number of homes in a certain amount of time so that we could try to sell them faster. Right?
Diversity now, I think, is
Yeah, I agree.
kind of coming to light as being, through this RFQ, that's what I was concerned about is,
And I think, like we said, I think, and Mark said, there's plenty of time to iron out those specific
Right.
details within the agreement that this is this is now the expectation, this is the agreement. But to see, I mean, I think it'd be interesting to see if we did get, 2, 3, 4 proposals, what that would look like.
And if you have a developer that you want us to reach out to, let me know. So I can send it to them.
How are we advertising this or putting it out there?
No, you don't technically have to advertise it. It just needs to be published and put out. I mean, we'll look at the major developers in the area and try to get it to them, but I don't have a sheet to go by.
So how would somebody over in Illinois who's a pretty good developer, where would they be scanning? How would they find out about it?
Well, we'll put it on Facebook. We'll put it on do the social media. We'll put it on the website.
I think
They have to
we'll
be looking at our website.
Yeah, I think what we may do as well is present it to the IDC. I mean, they made multiple contacts during the time that they were trying to develop a plan for the property and while they were negotiating the land swap. So I think they could send it back out through those channels as well. Because initially the developers that they had talked to when the property was just up for sale, you have to remember that there's a few different machinations about how this is, we've tried to do this. Originally, the property was just up for sale. Hey, here it is. There's nothing on it. It's 49 acres. You can buy it and then do whatever.
Right.
And a lot of the developers that they spoke to weren't that interested in that particular project. They might be more interested now that there's a funding mechanism and that the city is.
That really would be helpful to have that list of known developers.
Sure.
And that they would get a direct solicitation.
Yeah, and that was somewhat of my plan, was to reach out to the IDC directly and say, hey, here is the proposal, or here's what we're seeking, here's the RFQ. We know that you made a number of contacts during this time trying to find someone to purchase the property. Maybe they would be interested now, knowing that the details have changed considerably since the original. And then that was, Mark's commentary at the prior meeting was, this is a very different proposal than what was initially put out to the public regarding the property.
I think it makes a difference too. If I'm a developer, I know there's a lot of interest in this, 4 or 5 other developers have submitted plans. I'm not going to give a highball thing thinking I'm the only one in the right.
Well, absolutely.
Drive through St. Charles, you can have a whole list.
Yeah, there's signs everywhere.
The Missouri Municipal League or one of the Chamber of Commerce's or something, isn't there a
St. Charles.
statewide
There's a whole
bulletin board type
There's a whole
thing?
builders association in St. Louis and Eastern Missouri.
Rich. all-
Just something you could pin something up to and
You can contact them, they can circulate it to their.
Yeah, that's a good concept.
Interestingly, I think that the president of the Home Builders Association is affiliated with the developer that submitted a proposal to us previously.
Yes,
So
yes.
he'll be very aware of what's going on. If we do go that route.
Could we get some clarification on that use tax thing or some research into it to find out a little more details?
Yeah, because they don't have a nexus here. That's why I don't know if there would be a use tax on what they purchase. I mean, they're building here, but but we'll check. We'll see what the Department of Revenue says.
I mean, I've had it explained to me, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
So Mark, just to ask the question, once the RFQ submitted, if there are, let's say we receive no proposals.
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
I think hopefully we'll at least get one.
Okay.
Yeah. We have to do our due diligence to put it out there and let any interested party know about it. And there's just one, we'll negotiate.
Yeah.
It's hard to,
Yeah, I mean, that we can what if all we want.
nobody wants to do it, then
I think this might be more interesting because it gives guidance.
we'll have to add that. And it's a tremendous transfer of the initial development costs for the infrastructure that are normally financed before you even sell a single lot. So there's a huge financial incentive for a developer they come in under these circumstances.
Okay. Everybody feel good about
One step closer.
it? No, there you go. Okay. Anything else to discuss at this time? Okay. If not, then we will adjourn.